With all the that's happening, all the drama with the family, it's time for me to go because my family is draining.
And Tammy Slaton came terrifyingly close to death. And what happened behind those hospital doors will shock even the most loyal fans of 1,000-pound sisters. For years, viewers have known Tammy as the bold, outspoken, and unpredictable sister of Amy Slaton, a woman whose life, laughter, and struggles have unfolded in front of millions. But behind the TV cameras, behind the filters and edited episodes, is a raw emotional truth few ever see. The pain, the fear, and the moment she genuinely believed she might not make it through the day. This is the story of the morning that changed everything. The day Tammy Slaton faced her deepest fear. It started like any other morning. Tammy awoke in her Kentucky home, surrounded by the familiar sights of her life, framed photos, medical equipment, and the soft hum of oxygen in the background. Her days had been filled with both hope and hardship. But on this particular morning, something felt different. As she tried to shift her body from the bed, a sudden sharp pain shot through her chest. It wasn't the usual discomfort she'd grown used to. This was something else, deep, crushing, relentless. Within seconds, her breathing grew shallow. Each inhale felt heavier, as if the air itself had turned against her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, loud, erratic, terrifying. Panic began to rise. Tammy had experienced health scares before. Breathing trouble wasn't new. But this time, she knew something was very wrong. Her body was sending her a message she couldn't ignore. She tried to call out for help, but fear clouded her thoughts and made her voice tremble. The room spun as dizziness washed over her. Every breath became a desperate fight. Every second, a struggle to stay conscious. Somewhere in the back of her mind, the unthinkable crossed her thoughts. What if this is it? What if I don't make it? When Amy rushed into the room, the sight of her sister stopped her in her tracks. Tammy's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror, and her chest heaved in labored breaths. "Tammy, what's happening? Talk to me." Amy's voice cracked as she knelt beside her. But Tammy could barely speak. Her words came in broken gasps, choked by panic and pain. She tried to explain, but it was like her body was shutting down faster than her mind could process. Within minutes, Amy called for help. The sound of sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in, their movements fast and focused. Oxygen masks, monitors, wires. The familiar chaos of emergency medicine consumed the small space. Tammy was lifted onto a stretcher, surrounded by flashing lights and urgent voices. Every bump of the ambulance sent waves of pain through her chest. The world outside blurred past the window, and as she stared up at the ceiling, tears filled her eyes. She had spent so many years battling her weight, her health, her emotions. But this moment was different. For the first time, Tammy wasn't fighting for change. She was fighting to survive. Inside the hospital, the situation only grew more alarming. Nurses moved quickly, attaching monitors, inserting IVs, adjusting oxygen levels. Machines beeped in steady, rhythmic pulses, a haunting reminder of how fragile life truly is. Lying there, Tammy felt her strength fading. Fear, guilt, and exhaustion mixed inside her. She thought of Amy, of her family, of all the people who loved her despite her flaws. And the question that echoed in her mind was simple. What if I never get to see them again? Doctors worked around her, adjusting her oxygen, administering medication, monitoring her vitals. The world around her became a blur of motion and noise. But Tammy could only focus on one thing, the sound of her own heartbeat. It was uneven, shaky, fragile. She'd always thought of herself as strong, tough, even stubborn. But in that moment, lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by strangers fighting to keep her alive, she felt small, more human than she ever had before. Later, when Tammy reflected on that terrifying day, her voice trembled as she admitted, "I honestly thought I might not wake up. I kept thinking about all the things I haven't done, all the people I love. I was scared I'd never get the chance to tell them how much they mean to me." Those words revealed a side of Tammy. Few have seen a woman stripped of her defenses, facing her own mortality. Meanwhile, Amy and the rest of the family were living through their own nightmare. The waiting room was filled with fear and tension. Every passing minute felt like an hour. Amy tried to stay strong, but tears streamed down her face as she whispered prayers under her breath. Watching someone you love teeter on the edge of life changes everything. It leaves scars no camera can capture. As the hours passed, the crisis slowly began to ease. Tammy's oxygen levels stabilized. Her heart rate slowed. The immediate danger passed, but the emotional weight of what she'd been through didn't lift. Even after the machines quieted, the fear lingered, a shadow that wouldn't go away. Every breath felt like a reminder of how close she'd come to losing it all. In the days that followed, Tammy began to process what had happened. The physical recovery was slow, painful at times, but it was the emotional aftermath that cut deepest. Lying in her hospital bed at night, she'd listen to the steady hum of machines, the distant footsteps of nurses, and the soft beeping of monitors. She'd stare at the ceiling and wonder, is this my wake-up call? Is this the moment that changes everything? There were nights she couldn't sleep, nights when she replayed the panic in her head, the gasping for breath, the look of fear on Amy's face. The weight of that moment stayed with her, heavier than anything she'd ever carried. The truth is, behind the fame, behind the TV show, and behind every public appearance, Tammy was still human. A woman living with fear, regret, and hope all tangled together. The cameras never captured the endless hospital nights, the quiet moments of reflection, the whispered prayers, the tears that came without warning. They didn't see the way she clutched her sister's hand in silence, afraid to let go. For Tammy, this near-death experience was more than a medical emergency. It was a mirror held up to her soul. She realized how fragile life really is, how quickly it can slip away, and how easy it is to take it for granted until you're staring death in the face. Even as she began to recover, the mental toll remained immense. The panic attacks, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, they all became part of her new reality. Tammy wasn't just healing her body. She was trying to rebuild her spirit. At times, she admitted to feeling completely alone, even when surrounded by people. Fame, attention, and fan support couldn't protect her from the quiet fear that haunted her. She'd achieved so much, yet deep inside she felt broken, scared of what her body might do next. Still, through all the pain, there was one constant, Amy. Their bond, though complicated, became Tammy's anchor. Through every argument and misunderstanding, Amy remained by her sister's side. She showed up every day, bringing laughter, hope, and a reminder that Tammy wasn't fighting alone. Even when Tammy lashed out in frustration, Amy stayed. Because family isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about showing up when it matters most. Tammy's hospital scare didn't just change her physically, it reshaped her emotionally. It forced her to confront truths she had long avoided, the toll her lifestyle had taken, the fragility of her health, and the urgency to keep fighting. She knew that surviving that day was more than luck. It was a second chance. And yet, even as she began to regain her strength, a question lingered in her heart. What if it happens again? Every cough, every tightness in her chest, every sleepless night brought that fear rushing back. She had escaped death once, but the memory never truly faded. In the weeks after leaving the hospital, Tammy often spoke about gratitude, about realizing that life, no matter how imperfect, is precious. But those who knew her best could still see the weight behind her eyes, the unspoken fear that another collapse might be waiting just around the corner. Fans saw her smiles, her determination, her return to filming. But what they didn't see were the private tears, the trembling hands, and the nights she spent questioning everything, her choices, her health, her future. Tammy Slaton's terrifying hospital scare wasn't just another dramatic moment in a reality show. It was a raw, human battle for survival. It stripped away the fame, the filters, and the cameras, revealing the truth beneath it all. A woman fighting to live one breath at a time. And while part one of her story ends with her survival, it's only the beginning of what came next. The emotional aftermath, the rebuilding, and the painful realization that healing doesn't end when the hospital doors close. Because what Tammy faced after her near-death experience was just as devastating. A struggle that went far beyond the physical. In the next chapter of her journey, We'll uncover the mental and emotional battles that followed the heartbreak, the anxiety, and the moments when hope seemed to fade completely. Tammy's story isn't just about weight or fame. It's about what it means to be human, to fight for your life, and to find strength in the darkest moments. The day Tammy Slaton nearly lost everything was the day she finally saw the truth. Life is fragile. Love is powerful, and survival is never guaranteed. Powerful, and survival is...
You know I will. We're engaged, bitches! I gotta know her.
Surviving a life-threatening health scare is one thing. Surviving what comes after the emotional collapse, the mental war, is something entirely different. For Tammy Slaton, the days and months after her near-death hospital experience marked a new kind of struggle. One that wasn't measured in oxygen levels or heart rates, but in fear, panic, and sleepless nights. The physical fight was over. The mental one had only begun. When Tammy left the hospital, she was alive, but far from whole. Her body had survived, but her mind was fragile, haunted by a single question. What if it happens again? Each morning, as sunlight crept through her window, she'd wake with that tightness in her chest. Not the same pain as before, but a ghost of it. Every cough, every skipped heartbeat sent her spiraling into fear. Her body had once betrayed her. Could she ever trust it again? Tammy's mental health, already under strain from years of public scrutiny and private battles, began to fracture. Anxiety wrapped around her like an invisible cage. Simple tasks, standing, showering, walking, suddenly felt like climbing mountains. Even breathing became an act of courage. Fans saw the confident, outspoken Tammy they knew from TV, the one who laughed, argued, and joked. But behind closed doors, the silence was deafening. Nights were long and lonely, her laughter replaced by quiet tears and the hum of her oxygen machine. She confessed to feeling trapped inside her own body, inside a life that demanded strength she didn't always have. "I feel like I'm watching myself live," she once said softly, instead of actually living. Even her bond with Amy, her sister and emotional anchor, began to strain. Amy's love was endless, but so was her exhaustion. The stress of caring for Tammy, watching her struggle, fearing every moment could be the last, was wearing her down. There were fights, sharp, painful ones, over food, over appointments, over Amy's attempts to push Tammy toward change. Neither sister was the villain. They were both tired, scared, and desperate for peace. Amy once whispered through tears, "It's hard to love someone when you're scared of losing them every day." Those words stayed with Tammy long after. Outside their home, the battle against public judgment was just as brutal. Fame had once given Tammy validation. Now, it was a weapon turned against her. Every headline, every photo, every post brought comments, some supportive, many cruel. Strangers mocked her weight, speculated about her choices, and dissected her life as if she were just a storyline. Tammy read those comments late at night. Each one cut deeper than the last. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was exposure. She started to withdraw. Calls went unanswered. Smiling for the camera became unbearable. The anxiety was relentless. A whisper in her mind reminding her that one wrong move could send her back to the hospital. Or into public shame. There's a particular kind of pain when your greatest fear lives inside your own body. Tammy knew it well. During therapy, she asked, "How do you fight something that's part of you?" Therapy became a lifeline. She began to face emotions she'd buried: grief, guilt, anger, shame. Some sessions ended in tears, others in silence. But slowly, she realized trauma doesn't end when the danger passes. It lingers, reshaping everything that follows. At night, she relived it: the alarms, the flashing monitors, the doctors rushing in. Sometimes she woke in a panic, heart racing, certain she couldn't breathe. They weren't dreams. They were memories replaying in real time. One night, she tried to walk from her bed to the bathroom. Halfway there, her chest tightened. Her breath came in short gasps. She froze. A chilling thought hit her. If I collapse now, who will find me? Her breathing quickened. Her hands shook. Panic took over. That was the night she realized her battle wasn't physical anymore. It was psychological. The next morning, Tammy broke down in Amy's arms. "I thought I was dying again," she said through tears. Amy simply replied, "You're not alone. Not now, not ever." Those words became her anchor. Her family remained her foundation, though the strain was constant. Her parents worried but felt powerless. Friends offered support but feared overstepping. Some people drifted away, unable to bear the weight of her pain. Others, like Amy, stayed tired but unshakably loyal. Even so, Tammy's anxiety often turned to anger, her frustration into guilt. Healing the mind, she learned, is slower than healing the body. The fear of death never really left. The beep of a microwave or the hiss of her oxygen tank could trigger flashbacks. Her body remembered everything. But amid the fear, small sparks of hope began to flicker. Tammy started walking short distances from her bed to the porch, then down the hallway. Each tiny step was a victory. She began recording honest video updates, raw, unfiltered, emotional. She talked about her anxiety and panic attacks, about the truth of living with fear. Fans responded with kindness, many sharing their own struggles. For the first time, Tammy felt connected, seen not as a spectacle, but as a survivor. Therapy gave her new tools: breathing exercises, grounding techniques, journaling. Some days, they worked. Others, she fell apart anyway. But even in failure, she kept trying. Recovery, she realized, wasn't a straight line. It was a dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Amy noticed the shift. The anger that once flared so easily began to fade. Tammy was softer now, still scared, still uncertain, but determined. She was showing up for herself and her family in a way she hadn't before. Still, certain moments brought the fear rushing back. Hospital follow-ups triggered panic. The sterile smell, the echo of machines, they transported her right back to that night. She almost didn't make it. Amy would hold her hand tightly as Tammy's eyes filled with tears. Survival, she learned, doesn't erase fear. It teaches you how to live with it. Setbacks still came. Panic attacks that left her gasping. Nights she couldn't sleep. Days she couldn't eat. Moments when she questioned whether it was worth fighting anymore. But each time, she found a reason, her family, her faith, her fans, to keep going. During one confessional, Tammy said quietly, "People think once you survive, you're supposed to be grateful all the time. But sometimes survival hurts just as much as the moment you almost died." Those words cut deep, not just for her, but for anyone who's ever survived something they're still healing from. Amy's love remained her steady light. She learned when to speak and when to simply sit beside Tammy in silence. Slowly, their sisterhood began to heal. There was laughter again, hesitant at first, but real. A shared joke, a warm hug, a reminder that love doesn't vanish in pain. It grows through it. Tammy began to understand that healing isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about finding hope in small victories and allowing yourself to feel joy again, even when fear still lingers. Her recovery revealed a truth few ever talk about. The hardest part of survival begins after the danger ends. It's learning to live again, to breathe without fear, to trust your heartbeat. To look in the mirror and believe that life can still be good. Tammy's path was anything but easy. It was messy, painful, and unpredictable. But it was also filled with resilience. Each panic attack survived, each apology made, each step taken became proof that she was stronger than she ever realized. She started speaking publicly about mental health, not as a celebrity, but as a survivor. "If I can get through this," she said once, "then maybe someone else will believe they can too." Those words resonated far beyond the show. People saw the real Tammy, a woman no longer defined by her weight, but by her will to keep going. Her story isn't glamorous. It's not a quick transformation or a TV miracle. It's raw, human, and ongoing. It's about falling apart and putting yourself back together one breath at a time. Because for Tammy Slaton, survival was never just about breathing. It was about believing. Believing that even after the darkest night, the morning will come. Even after the darkest night, the morning will come.
Out the window. I didn't like Florida that much when I was down there.
I love it. The beach is the biggest thing, I won't lie.
I'm not into
Tammy Slaton had faced the unthinkable before. But nothing could have prepared her for what came after the cameras stopped rolling. She survived the hospital once, but that survival came at a price few could ever understand. To fans, she looked happier, smiling, laughing, cracking jokes, but behind those brief moments was a woman fighting silent battles no camera could capture. Tammy wasn't just recovering physically. She was piecing together her mind, emotions, and the will to live. When filming ended, guilt became her constant shadow. She spoke about how helpless she felt seeing her family worry, how her own body betrayed her, and how the weight of public scrutiny crushed her spirit. Every word, every breath, every action was analyzed by millions. It was like living on a knife's edge. One wrong step could mean collapse, not just of her body, but of her soul. Every public appearance was an act of bravery. Each interview and moment on 1000 Delby Sisters became a carefully held performance, stitched together by courage. Fans saw laughter and sass, but not the panic attacks, sleepless nights, and quiet tears when the cameras cut. Tammy had to wear strength like armor, even when she felt like falling apart. Behind every scene of joy was the exhausting labor of survival. Yet, through the chaos, one thing stayed constant: her determination. Tammy fought to regain control of her life. She leaned on Amy for strength, followed medical advice, and pushed herself through therapy, even when it felt unbearable. Each calm day, each breath without panic, every small step forward became a quiet victory. She was clawing her way back, one fragile success at a time. But the calm didn't last. Surviving the hospital wasn't the end of her nightmare, was the beginning of a darker chapter. Weeks after returning home, Tammy sensed something was wrong. At first, she blamed exhaustion, but one evening while sitting in her chair, a sharp pain tore through her chest. She couldn't breathe. Panic surged. Her vision blurred, her heart raced, and her body felt heavy. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and gasped, "Please, I can't breathe. Help me." Moments later, flashing lights filled her driveway. Paramedics rushed in, their voices urgent and calm all at once. To Tammy, everything moved in slow motion. Each bump of the ambulance jolted pain through her body. Her thoughts spiraled. What if this is it? What if Amy has to live without me? Fear flooded every inch of her. At the hospital, chaos erupted again. Alarms blared, nurses shouted numbers, oxygen masks tightened around her face. Her body was shutting down. Between consciousness and darkness, she could only hear faint voices and feel Amy's trembling hand holding hers. "You're okay, Tam. Stay with me, please." Amy's words broke through the noise, becoming Tammy's anchor, the reminder she still had someone worth fighting for. After hours of panic, the storm began to settle. Doctors confirmed what Tammy already feared: a severe respiratory collapse. Her heart and lungs had been pushed to the edge. Her body was breaking down under years of strain. Lying there, surrounded by machines keeping her alive, Tammy faced a brutal truth: her survival was no longer guaranteed. The emotional toll hit harder than the physical pain. Tammy confessed later that there were moments she wanted to let go. The thought of dying terrified her. But the exhaustion of surviving felt even heavier. Each beep of the monitor reminded her how fragile she really was. Nights were the hardest. In the dim hospital light, she listened to the sound of her own breathing. Each inhale a victory, each exhale a question mark. She prayed for strength, or sometimes just for peace. She called those nights the loneliest of her life, haunted by guilt, fear, and the realization that her life was hanging by a thread. And yet, within that darkness, she discovered pieces of strength she didn't know existed. She listened to doctors, fought through therapy, and took recovery one breath at a time. Some days ended in tears, others in quiet triumph. But she kept going. Each sunrise meant she had defied death again. Through it all, Amy never left her side. The sisters' bond, often strained, became their lifeline. Amy held her sister's hand through every test, every panic, every tear. Their usual teasing gave way to moments of raw emotion, Amy's whispered prayers, Tammy's apologies, their shared silence heavy with love and fear. The medical team began to call Tammy a fighter. They saw a woman who refused to give up, even when her body begged her to stop. But for Tammy, it wasn't heroism, it was survival. Pure, painful survival. When her condition stabilized, doctors delivered the harsh truth. One more collapse could be fatal. Her body couldn't handle another crisis. Tammy listened silently. She didn't need convincing. She had already felt death breathing down her neck twice. Her recovery was long and grueling. She had to relearn how to breathe without panic, how to walk without fear, and how to hope again. Every small act, sitting up, taking a step, smiling, became a battle between exhaustion and determination. She wanted to live not just for herself, but for the family who refused to give up on her. Therapy became a crucial part of her healing. For the first time, Tammy opened up about her anxiety, depression, and fear of failing again. She admitted she wasn't just battling her weight, she was battling the emotional scars that came with it. She had been her own harshest critic, trapped in cycles of guilt and hopelessness. But now, she was learning to forgive herself. Her confessions showed a side of Tammy few had seen, a woman painfully self-aware, honest about her mistakes, and desperate for redemption. She knew that survival wasn't just about keeping her body alive, was about mending the mind that had suffered just as deeply. This chapter of Tammy's life wasn't one of triumph, at least not the kind TV celebrates. It was a story of enduring pain, of facing death and deciding to fight back anyway. The cameras never showed the real aftermath, the nights of panic, the exhaustion, the fear that gripped her long after the lights faded. Even after returning home, the trauma lingered. Every short breath, every moment of fatigue triggered flashbacks, the blaring sirens, the oxygen mask, Amy's tears. She lived with constant fear that one wrong move could send her back to the hospital. But Tammy refused to let fear define her. She started laughing again, even if it was through pain. She cherished small joys: a quiet morning, a call from Amy, a breath without struggle. Life wasn't easy, but it was hers to fight for. She was rebuilding piece by piece, learning to live not for applause or attention, but for peace. Her scars, both visible and unseen, told the story of everything she had endured. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with daily battles against fear, doubt, and physical limits. But through it all, Tammy's strength became undeniable. True strength, she learned, isn't about perfection. It's about refusing to quit when everything inside you wants to surrender. As this chapter closes, one truth stands out. Surviving the hospital wasn't the end of Tammy's nightmare, it was the beginning of her rebirth. The pain and fear still linger, but within them lies proof of her resilience. She's still here, still breathing, still fighting. And as fans await what comes next, one haunting question remains: how many more times can Tammy face death and win? Because the most shocking chapter of her story isn't the one captured by cameras. It's the one still unfolding in silence. When the lights are off and survival depends only on the fragile, unbreakable will of a woman who refuses to